This was a game I played on my Journey 2000. I started the game with b3, Nimzo Larson, because it's my main opening. They played e5, I played bishop b2, and they played d6. Best move, I'm supposed to play e3, he plays bishop e7. I play f4, because the moment black moves the f8 bishop, you're supposed to try and get the e5 pawn away so you can take on g7. He takes, and then I take that. He does this, I took his rook. He took my bishop, and I brought my knight out. He gave his check, I'm forced to play king e2. And everything starts falling apart. But then he plays this. So it comes with the first lesson in this video. Think about, you need to think about your moves properly. This guy thought he's forking my queen and bishop, but he missed. I can just take this, fork his king and queen, force a queen trade, so his attack gets weakened. That's exactly what happened. And he took this pawn. I brought out my rook. He moved his king, so now he can't castle either. I brought out my rook. And I think I already see. Even though I had to move my king a lot in the opening, he has 4 pieces on the back rank. 5 if you count his king. The only pieces he has off their home squares is his king, which is on d8, which is barely any difference. His pawn on d6, and his bishop on f5. Those are the only pieces off their home squares. Meanwhile, all my pieces are off their home squares except for a2, g2, and h2. So you need to make sure you bring your own pieces out. I bring my knight forward to try and fork him. He goes back. I trade off my knight for his bishop because that's his only active piece. And I played this, obviously targeting the pawn on b7. And my opponent played this check. I moved my king back, and here my opponent made another fatal mistake. d4. My opponent forgot to think about one thing. That pawn was blocking the bishop's line of sight to b7 before it moved and attacked my knight. Now, it's not. So I took the pawn on b7, and then he took my knight. I took his... And he took my knight, I took his rook. He's now facing 2 rooks with 2 knights. Takes that, I take his pawn, and my pieces are way more active than his. He plays this, which shuts his bishop out. Here. The main mistake my opponent made was they weren't thinking about their moves long enough. He kept playing the game. He started creating like a defensive barrier to block out my rooks. But he needs to defend it. He needs to get a position where all his pieces are defended to even attempt to survive here. I just continue to push his pieces back. And I got into a bit of trouble here with my king actually not being able to move anywhere except to f1, and I immediately occupied f1, so my king can't move anywhere. He moved his knight. I placed my rook on the 7th rank, because if you can put a rook on the 7th rank without getting captured or getting trapped or something, you should. He plays this to save the pawn, completely hanging this one. He checks. I trade because I want to simplify because I'm up material. And the game went on. He tried to play defense. I did this, and I played b4 here. And my opponent, he did not think long enough about his moves and took the pawn, which blundered the bishop, and they resigned. Because there's down too much material. Nothing can save them. And the main mistakes of my opponent was they weren't thinking about their moves long enough. They weren't thinking about what I wanted. And they completely missed my threats and failed to understand how to attack my king. If your opponent's king is exposed, the way to deal with that is simply develop your pieces so you can attack it faster. I guess that's it. Just develop your pieces so you can attack it. And eventually it's going to fall. Don't give them time to get a safe position. My opponent made that mistake with all the way back at the beginning. Here, like sure my king's out in the open, but they have no developed pieces apart from a queen and 2 bishops, and I assume traded the queens off, so leaving them with absolutely no attack. Like, you need to bring out your pieces so you can attack an exposed king. He failed to do that, so his attack failed, and he also forgot that the opponent's blocking the way to b7. Like, you need to think about what, like, before you play a move, think about, is this opening his pieces or something? Can he take something if I play this? And what could be the effects of playing this? And think about why you're playing these moves. Think about if your moves actually have a purpose. Like, and also here, make sure to fully check around before you take a piece. Just make sure it's properly unprotected. My opponent failed to do that here, so he lost his bishop. Alright, that's the end of the video for today. See you next time. Bye.